Whoa. All right. We'll now reconvene to open session. Time is 7:07 p.m. Noting that a quorum of the board is present, we'll move to our first item, our opening items under 3A. I welcome from that's me. So next is our colors that are presented tonight by Summer Creek High School. That brings us to item 3E, our commendations and recognitions. For that, I'll turn it over to the administration.
Thank you. 2 weeks ago, our community celebrated the dedication of the Insperity Adaptive Sports Complex. Humble ISD is honored to have partnered with the YMCA on this unique sports complex and playground that serves our students, our community, and the Houston region. This complex was funded by generous corporate and individual donors. Please play tonight's inspiring moment.
So we had a car accident. Somebody hit us going 80 miles an hour from behind. So all my children got hurt and were in the hospital. One of them had a brain injury, internal decapitation, and basically he was just hanging by a thread. They thought he was not gonna survive. I mean, he's a lot better than what they were expecting. So he's working on walking, you know, he's gonna take a walk. This is just accommodating everything because my son, we haven't even been able to take him to a park because there's nothing that he can do or he can play with. And so we just a boy, so this is the only fun that he have been able to have in a year since the accident. It is amazing. My son is in love with it. Just, you know, our heart, you know, we just feel like we want to cry, you know, because it's something that it got stolen from him, you know, and now we're able to come over here. I mean, I don't mind coming once a week, you know, and bring him over here.
So the Insperity Adaptive Sports Complex in Humble ISD is a super unique facility because it's going to be able to reach the community, the school district, the YMCA.
And since we started putting this project together, I learned, I know Joe learned, and a lot of us on the cabinet learned quite a bit about the benefits of physical activity for all children. And the name of our campaign to raise the money was Sports for All.
And with the opening of this sports complex, we really demonstrate that it is possible for all children to have facilities that meet their needs, that they can participate and learn the value of teamwork and getting better and competing against themselves, all of those things that we really value across our entire school district.
We're really excited to be able to have the opportunity to do our ribbon cutting.
The the whole project was funded by donations from the Houston Astros organization, the Houston Rockets, the YMCA, Insperity. Many, many, many community donors came together to make this possible.
Yeah, great job, Dave. Great job, Wesley.
Humble ISD's family. It's a family with the community, the business community, and well beyond. And together, we continually develop the very, very best place for children.
Outside of school time, it's an open playground. And so it will give our community, as well as people outside of the community who don't have this kind of complex, the ability to come and allow their children or individuals with or without disabilities to play on the playground.
Thank you though for building this place, and I mean, it's amazing.
Next, I'm going to ask Dr. Rob Moe to come to the podium to make some special announcements. Dr. Moe's parents are graduates of Charles Bender High School. Years ago, he began researching his family genealogy. His interest has grown into so much more, including an informational resource that we are proud to unveil tonight.
Okay, I have two things I'm going to share with you tonight. Long time in the making. The first one is that Humble now has a vast web archive that details its history over the past 100+ years. It's live. The address is humbleisd.net/history. And did you know that Humble originally began as Harris County Common School District number 28? Well, you might know that by now because I've been doing a lot of tweets. On the website, you would go under the history section to find that out. The history section is everything about the district itself. Timelines of things that happened, statistical data, trivia data, and I'm going to take you through some of the highlights. The timelines basically are set up by decades, but it will show every event that we dealt with as a district or that was happening in the world around us, in the city, the county, the country for that matter. You can also see in each of these decades a list of the campuses that we had at the beginning of the decade and at the end of the decade, including their names. If you were to click on the links, it takes you to a history of each of those campuses. Then there's statistical data. You can go up and look up the student enrollment at any year in our 100-year history. Actually, some of the ones before that. The number of graduates who graduated from Humble ISD and the number that graduated from each of the schools. Now, all this didn't happen to us in isolation, so we've actually added a bunch of trivia data so you can see what's going on in the world around us at the time. So there's major events that show you what's going on in the world in each of these decades, the cost of living expenses at the beginning and end of each decade. Some of those prices are nice. The top music in each of those decades. Yeah, I chose the 80s for a reason. The top movies. And of course, the top television shows. So all that's in the history section. Did you know Humble High School is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year, which is a year earlier than the district? Well, to find out that information, you would go to the school's building section. This is where you'll find a history of each of the campuses or each of the buildings that we're doing. This is the construction data, if they had a dedication ceremony, who were the principals all those years, and again, the statistical data for those campuses. So I'll show you a couple of those. Under construction, I think this is Humble High School's page. You'll get some information about the construction notes, the construction pictures. If they had a dedication ceremony, there's information on that, as well as pictures if we can find them. Who served as the principals of those schools and when they served. And this list is complete. We have all this information. If the campus had associate principals, there's a separate page for that. And of course, each school also has an assistant principal page. Who were the teachers of the year at each of those campuses? Right now, we have it going back to 1998. Did you know Louise Panzarella was the first woman elected to the Humble ISD School Board? And that didn't happen until 1969. All right, to find that information, you'd go to the school board section, which is actually pretty vast. So in the school board section, you can see who served on the school board every single year, going all the way back to 1884. You can see biographies for each of these people, and we also have some trivia information. So let you see that. So if you go to the school board section to see who's on the school board, it'll list it this way by year. It'll say who's on the board, what position they were in, if they held an office such as president, vice president, for some reason they resigned or were appointed. And it also gives you information about each of those elections. When was the election held? Which positions were up for grabs? How many people ran for those positions? And if you click on any of those links, you get information about those board members. You'll see when they served, what offices they held, and any information about them that we could find. There's also some trivia information pages. For instance, this one's showing who all resigned while they were on the board, who was all appointed. And did you know there have been 12 superintendents in Humboldt ISD's history? You probably know that by now. Okay, so there's a section for that. There's a faculty staff section where you can see information about superintendents or district administrators or teachers of the year across the district. So like, for instance, the superintendent page would show all 12 superintendents, and when you click on them, you go to the biography information about them. Now, this is phase one. It's almost completed. Probably take us another few weeks to finish it up. Then we'll begin phase two, where we'll start expanding the data that you can find in there. So this is a great resource for our community. I'm very excited to share that with you, but I really have something better. Okay, so, sorry, there's the address again, just in case you have it. Humboldt ISD was awarded a Texas Historical Marker, celebrating its founding 100 years ago. Now, I wanted to thank City of Humboldt for helping us with this application. They've done two things. They helped us get the application done, and they're letting us place the marker at the Charles Bender High School campus on Higgins Street, because that is where we were located when we became an independent school district. Now, we don't have the marker yet. We haven't even seen the text yet. As soon as the state tells us when that will happen, we will set up a dedication ceremony for it, but it will happen during this next school year. Now, I was going to ask City of Humboldt Councilman Norman Thunderbird to come up here and do a picture with us.
Thank you to Dr. Moe for all of his work on the historical marker. That has been a lot of work and quite an honor for our school district, so thank you for that. Helen Wagner, elementary PE facilitator, and Janice Russo, PE teacher at Oaks, also have a presentation commemorating an event that has become a part of Humboldt ISD's history. So I'd like to invite them forward.
That's almost right. Good evening. So tonight, we are here to honor, celebrate, and acknowledge two people that have supported our district and our students for 26 years. So I'm going to ask Steve and Paula Boone to please come forward. I'm going to give you a little history about Steve and Paula. They're very special people to us at the elementary level. I also have some elementary PE teachers that have joined me this evening in recognizing and honoring you too. So Steve and Paula, 26 years ago, became involved at Pine Forest, where their children attended school, in wanting to create what was the Marathon Challenge. And they had two goals in mind when they created this club, so to speak. They wanted children to understand and learn what a marathon consisted of, so the mileage being 26.2 miles. And then they wanted kids to understand and learn what it was like to set long-term goals. And so they felt as though they had kind of achieved that in the first year, but not exactly, because they only had 14 students complete that challenge the very first year that they implemented this program. Mind you, 26 years ago. The second year of the program, they felt like they were getting some speed going. They were fast forward ahead, and they had about 200 students participate and finish, because the goal of this was, once you finish, your incentive was you would get a t-shirt to honor that you had completed 26.2 miles. You're laughing, you have experienced this. You have one, there you go. And so what's exciting to me is that 26 years later, last year, 10,200 students received a t-shirt in our district for this program. Quite an accomplishment from 14, okay? So how is this program funded? Well, the proceeds come from the Texas Marathon that they run every New Year's Day in Kingwood. And so that helps to support the funding for the t-shirts in this program. And they actually now have, we're experiencing students whose parents have earned t-shirts in our program as well. So I want you to know that this is Paula and Steve's way of giving back to our community and promoting healthy lifestyles and living. Also with that, they walk the walk, they talk the talk, and I have to say I didn't write this in, but you run the run, okay? So knowing that, Paula has completed 330 plus marathons in her lifetime so far, and Steve has completed over 700 marathons thus far. So like I said, they're all about the message that they're trying to model for our students. So I would like for you all, they have a surprise, and this is something that they have not a clue what's coming. Janice Russo is one of our PE teachers. Hold on, don't you let them see that yet. Janice Russo is one of our PE teachers, and her mother is a quilter. And so what she has done is she has made a quilt out of many, now we don't have every single one, but we have many of the t-shirts that you all have presented to the children at the end of every year in a beautiful homemade quilt. So we want to present that to you this evening. And if I could get the rest of the PE teachers that are here this evening to come up and join us for a picture. We celebrate our marathon stars, Steve and Paula Boone. Thank you so much.
And finally, I would like to invite Jerry Monbaron forward to present this month's Super Staffers.
Humble ISD employees go above and beyond each day to meet the needs of our students, and we want to recognize these employees for their important work in making Team Humble ISD great. Each month, campuses and departments select an individual to be honored as a super staffer for their outstanding work in advancing student achievement. A drawing is held, and 3 honorees receive additional recognition at the school board meeting, including a gift card thanks to an award sponsor. The sponsor for this month's Super Staffer Awards is an anonymous donor who wanted to demonstrate their support to Humble ISD educators by being a part of this event. So tonight, being honored as the elementary super staffer is Wendy Anaya, assistant principal at Maplebrook Elementary. Joining Wendy up front is her principal, Tiffany Castletime. I'm going to read a little bit of what they said about Wendy as they're taking pictures. As Maplebrook's assistant principal, Wendy Anaya constantly works to ensure a safe environment for students and staff and easily builds relationships on our campus. Wendy is able to encourage students to give their absolute best, and it is clear to see how accomplished they feel when she praises them and supports them through difficult times. She is approachable for students, staff, and parents, is an authentic listener, and is experienced and dedicated enough to offer feedback that can make problems much easier to solve. Wendy never gives up on a kiddo or a staff member and always seeks to find solutions that are growth-oriented for everyone, and she does so with a genuine smile and a contagious positive energy. Wendy knows that education matters for all, and she is able to balance and juggle her workload with ease and does so with humor, grace, and professionalism. Congratulations. Being honored as our secondary super staff for tonight is Derek Johnson, Humble Middle School custodian. Joining Mr. Johnson is Saradia Johnson, principal of Humble Middle School. Yeah, you're not going away. So this is what was said about Mr. Derek. He works very hard to make sure our building is a safe and healthy learning environment for our students. He has excellent attendance and even comes to work when he isn't feeling well. He has had to fill in when there has been changes to our custodial staff, as well as working long hours when our regular custodial staff has been off duty. He cares about our staff and students. He has built relationships with our students. He goes out of his way to speak to students and encourage them to do the right thing. He even asks them about their grades and encourages them to make their best even better. He personifies the characteristics of excellence we strive to instill in all of our staff. Congratulations. Being honored as a support super staff for tonight is Lieutenant Erica Jornay from the police department. This nomination was on behalf of the Assistant Superintendents for Schools Division, so I'd like to invite Melissa Hayhurst, Trey Kramer, Lucy Schultz, and Kathy Rowell to come up and join us. And as they join us, go ahead. That's okay. You can clap for them. That's okay. Let me read what was written about Lieutenant Jornay. With safety and security as one of the district goals this year, it is easy to understand how members of the police department have been an integral part of ensuring this goal is implemented, monitored, and assessed. What isn't as obvious is how much Lieutenant Jornay has been a key factor in the success of this goal. From the launching of iHelp to the deployment of radios, she has become the individual that we turn to for assistance and answers. For example, when principals were alarmed about tips that might come in late at night or on holidays and perhaps be overlooked, she quickly worked with district dispatch personnel to develop a process for not only monitoring those tips, but providing emotional support to students who may be reaching out for help at 2 a.m. in the morning. Between her leadership and campus administrators and counselors, no tip goes unread so that individual students as well as entire campuses are safer. The assistant superintendents of schools and campus administrators greatly appreciate her tireless dedication and extraordinary work ethic and are proud that she is a member of our team. Congratulations.
That's my favorite part of the whole meeting. I hate to move on, but move on we must, and that'll bring us to item 3F is our comments by patrons or employees of the district. We don't have anyone signed up to speak this evening, so we'll move on to our comments by individual board members. I'll start here to my left with Ms. Morrison.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Boone, just a huge, huge thank you. For those of you who don't know, they started when I was there, so at Pine Forest, and it was awesome. But just a huge thank you for all that you've done for us. And a huge thank you for the super staffers. We are so fortunate to have staff that are so considerate and take care of our buildings and our children. So that's all I have to say tonight.
I want to say that I enjoyed seeing the video of the Adaptive Sports Complex. I really wish I could have been there. Unfortunately, it's not a good time for CPA this time of year. So had to miss out on that one. But I'm glad to see it went well. Really, really awesome program. The super staffers, congratulations, everybody. Great job. Appreciate all your hard work. Also wanted to congratulate the Teachers of the Year nominees. We were at the banquet, I think, about 2 weeks ago. Also, looking forward to seeing everyone at the Education Foundation Gala this Friday night. And that's all I have.
I'd like to ditto with Ms. Morrison and Mr. Carney already shared. But also, I would like to thank Dr. Moe for all the hard work on the history of Humble ISD, and I look forward to perusing the site. I love to read about history, so it'll be very fascinating for me. And last, I would like to also just piggyback on what you said about the marathon challenge. I have 3 of those, well, more than 3, but 3 of my kids have those shirts at home. And my oldest son actually has the 50-mile shirt from Green Tree because he doubled his miles. So thank you so much. Thank you.
I really don't have anything else to add. I just want to congratulate the super staffers. Dr. Moe, the history is pretty cool. I just looked at it briefly. I can't wait to read the whole thing, but a lot of work went into that, so thank you very much. And the marathon, it's amazing. I mean, that's what we need kids to do, to get out and move around. So we appreciate it, and you guys are awesome. It's great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Again, ditto. I mean, the marathon challenge. I've got an elementary student as well. She's gotten one of those. So I mean, it's in today's time, so many kids spend too much time behind the computer at a video game, and what y'all started, your foresight from way back, and just appreciate what all of y'all have done. I want to thank the City of Humble and Norman. You've always been a big supporter. Also a graduate, so I know the history project that's going on. It's near and dear to your heart as well. And I want to thank the city for allowing us to continue to use the Bender building and honor the Bender building as we honor Humble ISD. And lastly, Rob, this is your baby, and you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. Not just for this celebration, but what you've done with the museum in the city, what you've done for the Alumni Association over the years and so forth. And Mr. Lopez clicked on the website here, and he just looked at me and goes, "God, dude, this is awesome." And the time spent is well documented now. I mean, you've done a great job, and you were in our meeting this morning, and folks, buckle your seatbelt. There's a lot of things about to start happening. It's going to be a great year celebrating 100 years of Humble ISD.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be real brief. Dr. Moe, thank you. Norman, you in the City of Humble, thank you so much. It's going to be a great year. Looking forward to it. Madam President.
Cunningham, I'll just repeat those same sentiments, and it's great to put a name to faces that we see every day running across the bridge. I had no idea there was a connection between you and that effort, and I just remember the kids being very motivated to get the t-shirt, and so thank you for putting that in place for our schools. And Dr. Moe, I'm not a history buff, but thank you for putting it in a format that's easily consumable for those of us that are not. And City of Humble, we really appreciate your assistance in going through that effort to get the historical marker. That is very exciting. We look forward to that dedication ceremony. I don't have anything else to add, so we'll turn it over to our administration for comments.
I'm going to be brief also. Just want to mention that there's a lot of new research coming out about the fact that movement is actually related to learning. And that's something that we didn't necessarily know. We've learned so much in education in the last about 10 years, maybe even fewer, about the way that the brain works and the way that learning is really all connected to so much more than just sitting there and being a container. And so to have students motivated to learn and to move and those things being connected together is very exciting, things that have been happening in our district for a long time. And now we're learning just added benefits to those opportunities for our students. And our teachers are so talented. The minute that they see these things, they immediately start thinking about ways to have more opportunities for students to move in different ways. You don't necessarily have to be good at this thing or that thing. Helen has brought Drum Fit to the district, which sort of ties together movement and music in a way that allows students to really understand that being healthy isn't necessarily, there's not just one pathway to that. That if you're a musician, you can also be healthy through that pathway. So a lot of really exciting things happening in our school district, including the fact that part of this, the BOND program, is that we are looking to build over 20 elementary gymnasiums, so our students would have the opportunity to do that also. So one more of those systemic connections that we want to make for everyone so that you can see how all of the pieces and parts of things are connected together in the best interest of students. So with that, I think that's it.
Thank you. And we'll move on to hear a report from our board associations and committees, beginning with our audit committee. Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam President. Board members, Superintendent, you have a copy of the stats for this month's audit report. Any questions, please see the board superintendent or board members that are on that committee, Mr. Harney, Ms. Lamont Dixon, or you can see our director, Ms. Fashawn. All I have.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. We have our board superintendent evaluation process and goals committee, Mr. Lopez.
We are in the process having our first meeting tonight. Times, that's the only thing I have.
All right, more to come. Building and planning committee, Mr. Sitton.
Yes, you should have received the minutes from our last two meetings.
That February, I think.
February, it should have been another icon to click on for March. So I'll just go over some highlights from March. As we all know, Kingwood High School opened on time. There's still construction going on after school on weekends, and we'll be going on into the summer to finish that project. The ISC building is scheduled to open on May 27th. The Welcome Center is on schedule for July 1st move-in. For HR, public communication, and athletics, and the rest of the building will be available in the fall. The Ag Barn, the Kingwood Ag Barn, we're finishing up negotiations on that. You'll see that as an agenda item tonight. We also discussed the land for Elementary 29. We're finishing up that. Some of the due diligence engineering work on there. Let's see, Westlake Middle School, the report says 76%. We just got an update. They're 80% at substantial completion. If you've driven by there recently, they've got a lot of folks working and a lot of progress is happening on that. And let's see, coming down, you've got 3 agenda items. The Ag Barn, Timber Forest Extension, and control replacements at a couple of our schools. So that's all I have. And thank you to my committee members, Mr. Cunningham and Ms. Dixon, for all your efforts and all the time that you continue to spend on this committee.
That's a big commitment right there. All right, Education Foundation, Mr. Carney, have anything to add?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we've got the Education Foundation Gala this Friday night. So the event is sold out. It has actually record-breaking ticket sales. So it sounds like it's a popular event this year. If you don't have a ticket, you can still support the event by going online and bidding on the silent auction. You can go to humbleisdfoundation.org to register to bid. There's still some great packages available. Judging by the emails I keep getting that I am outbid on items, I guess my wife is having fun. Some good items on there. And a reminder, all proceeds from the event will support the foundation grants to Humble ISD teachers to implement creative learning projects. So by all means, it's a great cause. Thank you.
I want to thank all the donors for those as well. And, okay, our Finance Committee, back to Mr. Sitton.
Yeah, we just had our first workshop to get ready for the budget process. So if you have any questions regarding that, I know there were some questions about a few things that were on the agenda. Everyone should have received the responses from Mr. Sitton. If you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer those or get you over to. Again, Mr. Kennedy and Ms. Conrad, thank you for sharing your time with me on a regular basis.
Have our next workshop is May. Committee meeting on the 15th, I believe, right? I think the committee meeting's on the 15th.
Yes. And the workshop is
29th, okay. All right, Ms. Dixon will let us know about our Kingwood Super Neighborhood Council.
Two quick things. Probably most of you already know, but what we discussed is that the work at Highway 59 and I-69, or whichever you call it, has begun. That emergency contract was started. And also a lot of discussion at the time around Governor Abbott coming to town to check out the damage in Kingwood, those damaged areas. And since then, Lieutenant Governor Patrick has also come out. So hopefully we'll be moving in the right direction.
We thank our chamber for organizing that plea to see, plea for three.
Plea for three, yes.
That was, I think, responsible for getting them out here to see that, so.
And the next meeting will be April 18th.
April 18th. Oh, that's next week. All right, thank you, Ms. Dixon. All right, Ms. Morrison, give us an update on our legislative committee.
Okay. We met Saturday, April 7th, and started drafting the Texas Association of School Boards priorities for the next biennium. We have 6 priorities, and I'm just going to highlight them. We will send them all to you. Ms. Martin will send them all via Google Doc, which I would really appreciate any input. Our next meeting is on June 14th, and I'll be attending that. But just to highlight the 6 priorities that they've set up to work with to go to the legislature are the finance system. They want it modernized, and the thoughts are a reform system shall reflect the unique challenges of each district, and that it be more transparent. And like I say, I'm only highlighting this. I gave each one of you a copy so you can go over it. And another one is that the TEKS be simplified and that you be able to teach them within a year. Also to increase, I know, Ms. Johnson, I know. I don't, working with the state, I don't know if it'll happen, but we're trying, okay? We're trying to help you. Also, to increase the state funding for our retired and our active members, the TRS Active Care and the TRS Care. We are also coming forth to say that we feel like that TRS Care and TRS Active should be equal to the state retirement system. Their benefits are much better than our teachers and our staff. So then we go to the accountability system. We're going to try to work on them again on the A through F accountability. It is inherently flawed and grossly oversimplified. So we're going to work with that. And then we have we're going again to go back to reduce state testing, to reduce it to some, hopefully. And then last but not least, but one of the most important is that we're going again to be totally opposed to privatization of public education funds and vouchers. We oppose vouchers to include education savings accounts, tax credit scholarships, grants for special populations, and any transfer of public funds. So that's just a highlight, and I'll be bringing more to you. And like I say, Ms. Martin will be giving you the documents, so you can, if you don't mind, please add for me, so when I go back in June, I will give forth our thoughts. Also, I met with the Impact Committee at Harris County Department of Ed with Dr. Sconzo. He let us know that the deficit for the state is anywhere from $7 to $9 billion. It's coming out as $7 billion, but he said that $2 billion may be added due to Harvey relief. So, and that needless to say, there is no new funding, and so we'll see how the budget works out.
I would only add there that just for the administration, for the public who are following some of these bills, if there's something you need us to understand to advocate for on behalf of our district, please reach out to us and make sure that we understand the impact of those bills, so that when we are face to face with that congressman or senator or whatever, we can let them know personally how that's going to affect us and what we are advocating for. So.
Very good point, Mrs. Conrad. And Mrs. Conrad and Mr. Sitton and I will be leaving Saturday with the chamber to go on the annual legislative trip to meet with our senators and representatives. So we'll see how that goes too. So please let us know.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Morrison. All right. So that brings us to our items from closed session. We have one item under their personnel recommendations. I'll need a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded by Ms. Dixon. All in favor? Yeah, personnel thought for it. Okay, any opposed? I didn't see this side. Okay. Okay, motion passes. That brings us to our consent agenda. So we'll just roll through and see if we need to pull any items, beginning with item A, approval of minutes. Pulled minutes. Item B, tax refunds. Oh, do I need to hesitate now or later for you to do your thing? Okay. Okay. Okay, item B, tax refunds. Item C, goods, professional services, and non-construction services exceeding $50,000 in the aggregate or $25,000 individual. Item 5D, construction and construction-related purchases. Item E, proposed revisions to CH local. Item F, waiver of P&I. Item G, interlocal agreement with ESC Region 10. Item H, amendment to order appointing election officials. Item I, amendment to the order calling the bond election. Item J, budget transfers and amendments. Item K, financial advisor services.
Pull that.
Item L, the purchase of real property located at 23875 Ford Road. Item M, bond reimbursement resolution. Item N, construction and construction-related purchases. Item O, escrow agreement for Timber Forest Drive with LH Groves. Item P, the DDC controls upgrade at Green Tree and Hidden Hollow. Item Q, interlocal agreement with Harris County Department of Ed for security audit. Item R, approval of, okay, so we have items K and A. We'll move to action. So when you're ready, we'll have a motion, Mr. Sitton.
Yes, Madam President. As to, I move that we approve the following items via consent. Items 5B, 5C, 5D, 5E, 5F, 5G, 5H, 5I, 5J, 5L, 5M, 5N, 5O, 5P, 5Q, and 5R.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Motion and second. All those in favor? Approve? Motion was read by Mr. Sinton. And the second, who seconded? Oh, you got it, okay. Okay, so that brings us to, well, here's the question. So we move to action items. Do we keep A as A, or do we go back to those consent ones? Ms. Martin, you tell me which is easier on you. Okay, so, all right, so we are going to go back to item 5A, the approval of minutes. I need a motion.
I'll so move.
Second.
And a second, okay. Seconded by Mr. Cunningham. Motion by Mr.
The reason
Lopez.
why I pulled that one is that I need to abstain. That's all.
Thank you.
I wasn't here, I wasn't on.
Okay, have a okay. Any other discussion? All right, those in favor? Any abstentions?
601, there we go. We're done.
All right, that brings us to item 5K next. Is that okay?
So moved.
Second.
Our financial advisor services, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Cunningham, I believe you pulled that.
Yes, Madam President, I did pull it, and I appreciate, Mr. Seal, your responses earlier today. Those were real good. Just had just a couple of questions. When I'm looking at our letter here, and you said that we will not be penalized for breaking or terminating the current.
That's correct. There's a current contract has a 30-day out for any reason, and if the board approves this one, then our in-house counsel will notify the prior.
Okay, and the second, well, this is not the second, last question I have. I guess as I'm reading the scope of services here, and I look down on the 1.3, this is not limiting this particular company, what we're doing. And what it says, it does not include tax, legal or accounting advice with respect to any issue in connection with any opinion or certificate rendered by counsel or any other person at the closing, and does not include any review or advice. And we're not limiting ourselves. I guess that's my question.
No, sir, this firm will provide all the services that any firm that I've ever worked with can provide, including our current vendor. They're just making sure that we don't come back and sue them for legal advice they don't give us or other things. That's why we hire, I think Jonathan Farrells is our legal counsel, outside legal counsel in bond stuff. So he's a legal counsel. These guys do the, and Mr. Farrell's contract says he's not going to do any financial advisory. That's right. I would hope so.
Well, you know, and I like Charles Palmer. He's a good guy. So I know he goes by Terrell, but it's the first name Charles.
Anything you want to call him.
But anyway, well, that's all I had, Madam President. I just wanted to make sure if I'm understanding this right. I didn't get to see the last contract that we had with who we're getting ready to disengage with. Just wanted to make sure.
Any other discussion? Any response, Mr. Seal, on those? All right, so, oh, we already have a motion and second. All those in favor? Did you see that pop up?
I'm not voting. I mean, I'm technologically an idiot. I mean, you guys are changing all this stuff.
I just wanted to
Paper ballots?
Just wanted to
That's
draw
what
your
I'm-
attention to.
Paper ballots.
All right.
Is there a place where you have to go later and like vote?
No, you're good, I got you.
Okay.
She's got it, you're good.
All right, thank you. You've been here for 12 years. It changed, not good. Okay.
Right here.
I know. It's there.
Oh, believe me, I believe in that. Okay, let's move on to our next item is item 6A, Under action items is our reappraisal of our 2017 property tax. First, I'll need a motion.
So moved.
And
Second.
Second, a motion and a second. So before any discussion, I want to turn it over to administration for a little update.
Thank you. So December 12th, 2017, this board considered this idea of reappraisal as a taxing entity in our school district. At that time, we had what we felt was a lack of information on a lot of items, including Kingwood High School and its reopening, the ISC building, as well as the Welcome Center, the number of impacted properties in our school district, also the speed of reimbursement from insurance and FEMA, things like that, were still a bit unclear. Mr. Seal and myself were both concerned about making sure that we made quality decisions. One of the things that I think has been a hindsight is 2020 item for this entire process is that it was the fiscal responsibility of this board and boards before that allowed us to move quickly through a very, very difficult process that is reaching totals of about $100 million. We were able to bring contractors on site almost immediately because we could pay them. And other folks have talked about the difficulties of waiting for insurance checks and reimbursements. We began the processes very quickly and are very happy to have Kingwood High School open and working well back in their community. Bringing Kingwood High School back ended an $8,000 a day transportation budget item for us that was unexpected this school year, and many other things like that. With the reopening of Kingwood High School, we feel that we have our arms more around the true expense, the length of time it may or may not take to get reimbursements, and then beyond that, we've had many state leaders and local leaders assure us that Humble ISD and other districts will remain or return to a state of being whole in future sessions. And so as a result of that, we wanted to bring back this item on reappraisal for the board's discussion. We now know from the Harris County Appraisal District that roughly 4,000 properties in Humble ISD, out of 80,000, by the way, we're still impacted on January 1st. So a lot more information for us to contemplate and understanding where we are financially and what we can endure as a school district in partnership with our community moving through this very difficult storm that really has been an opportunity for all of us to work together from the minute we used our buses and our employees came together to help evacuate people all the way through to today where we're still figuring out ways to partner in the collective recovery. So Mr. Seal and I wanted to bring back this information for you all to have this reconsideration of the idea of reappraisal in our school district.
Thank you, Dr. Fagan. Is there any discussion? Mr. Sitton?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I didn't see your hand.
Yeah, so I like what we did in December by giving us the ability to come back and revisit this. Also, at the time, we were not given any guarantees. And while I appreciate the words that are being said in the public eye, but as one said, in theory, we'll get this money back. Well, in theory is not writing us a check. In theory is not guaranteeing us a dollar amount. But with that said, I do appreciate all the work that Mr. Seal and his team have done. I appreciate the work that Dr. Fagan and her team have done and have gotten us to a point to where we can come back and revisit this and prepare to go ahead and go forth with a legitimate reappraisal without waiting on these in theory checks that we're supposed to be getting.
Yeah, Mr. Seal, could you speak a little bit about the potential budgetary impact? I know it's all kind of an estimate at this point, but could we just go over that one more time? I know we talked about it a little bit at the finance meeting last time.
The key is in theory. We know that there are 4,000 properties, 4,000, let me say it this way, 4,000 tax accounts. Some of those, when we think of property, we think generally of a home on the ground. Some of that may be inventory, some of it may be raw land that's been damaged by the storm. But 4,000 tax accounts that will
be subject, that the appraisal district has identified as subject to reappraisal for last year. You have to then make some assumption with no real basis for that. It's just kind of what do you see as the worst case scenario. The way that the appraisal district is going to reappraise is they're going to go in and look at an area. Let's say it's a street that flooded. And they're going to say, we believe on average on this street that these homes got 2 feet of water. Based on that, they will say, therefore, we're going to give you, recommend that you have a credit or reduce your value by 25% of the total value of that property. They're not going to go into houses. They're not going to ask for past pictures necessarily. It's the same way they've done it for Spring Branch. It's the same way. I'm not sure how they'll do it in Montgomery ISD because that's a different county. But the same way that they'll do it for Harris County Florida ISD. So it's going to have to be a broad stroke statistical look. I don't know what they're going to do with businesses where you're heavily dependent on inventory. But we ran some numbers and said if you had 4,000 properties and you lost $100,000 worth of value per property, which to me seems like a very high figure for 4,000 properties, then those properties, keep in mind, will only be impacted for 1/3 of the year. So you're not going to have that full 100,000 worth knocked off your bill. It'll be 1/3 of that. But I'm hopeful and optimistic that, first of all, there will be a figure that we can fund for the next couple of years while we wait to see how or if the state is going to reimburse us. But I certainly believe it will be something below $10 million. I think it could be as low as $3 or $4 or $5 million. And we can, as I often say, we can do almost anything. We can't do everything. This will fall on the list of the almost anything that we can do if the board chooses to do it.
Includes business as well, business all properties.
All kinds of property.
Any indication from other entities that have, say, in those other counties that have already ordered the reappraisal? Is there any kind of timeline that you've seen?
Well, it's a very lengthy process, not because of the school district, but because of the appraisal district. First of all, they have to, and I believe the fact that they can tell us that there are about 4,000 properties, with the identification, they would then need to decide again what percentages they would apply to those properties. They would then notify each homeowner or each property owner that this is what we believe we would reappraise your property at. And each property owner then would have the ability, I think they would have a 30-day.
45 days.
They would have 45 days to appeal this. Once the appeal time takes place and they'll absorb those, then they will generate a new tax roll that will come to the district. I don't know if there will be an appeal and a reappeal process. It's possible that refund checks and the way this will be done, that people will pay their taxes and then they will get a refund check. I would say between the end of the year, the end of December of this year, and spring of next year is about as close as I can get to when those refunds will happen.
Okay, Mike, but are you saying that there will be different percentages? Or will it be a straight across the board percentage?
It will be different
Percentages for different areas on how much
water and how much damage they believe that area has done. But they're not going to, I understand, and understand the appraisal district is really, they're a little like FEMA. They're learning as they go on this process. They haven't, I don't believe they've completed the reappraisal of Spring Branch has. but they'll look at a block, and they're not gonna say, this house got water, this house didn't. If these two got it, they're gonna treat it like all of them did. So you will have winners and losers in that process. You will have some people who got no water, who will have their property reappraised. They were the highest house on the street. You will have some houses that got 5 feet of water, sitting next to houses that got 2 feet of water. But everybody on that street is 25%, for instance. So it is appraisal already is a very inexact science. I've never seen the equations in my backyard, and I hope I never do, because they don't know what's back there. But it's kind of like a best drive-by appraisal. Well, this is an even lower threshold practice than the regular appraisal. But it's the best that they can.
Any other discussion? All right, okay, the motion is to approve the order authorizing unanimous. All right, that brings us to our information items. We have our financial services reports. We have our policy revisions for the District Innovation Plan and our financial services reports. Those are there for if anybody has any questions. There's no presentation or anything. Okay, all right. All right, any other questions with that? Okay, so we'll move on to our topics for future board business. Does anyone have any topics for future board business? Okay, I have one. I have just one consideration. I don't know if y'all like this idea or not, but I would like for us to be a little more purposeful in reviewing data and having that as a part of our meetings to help us focus on student outcomes. And I don't know, I mean, I guess I'm saying this so y'all can start thinking about like what that would look like. And I don't mean like, I just mean maybe there's a calendar of when information comes out so that it's not like a lagging indicators, but something, maybe this information comes out in a certain month and it makes sense to aggregate that and then present it to the board in a following month. And perhaps there's a kind of a calendar we could establish. Y'all may not like this at all. If there's a calendar you could establish and we could know like, oh, we're going to get a report on bilingual this month, or we're going to, whatever those HR, whatever those topics might be. I just think that would be very valuable information to get in a presentation form where we can ask questions and really dig into it just once a month and not just have it as an information item per se to review or to have to request it from administration. So that's just an idea I want to throw out there. I don't know if y'all are. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great idea. But to add to that, I would also, specifically things like maybe the special ed numbers broken down by type of student. I know even just at the NSBA conference we went to, one of the sessions I went to, they were talking about certain demographics are at higher numbers, so that maybe we can address that and figure out ways to maybe shift some of that thought and find other measures instead of just saying, let's pull these people in special ed or whatever the area is. And maybe also in regards to discipline referrals, kind of looking at that per student. And I know I've seen data like from the police department, like on things like who's stopped and how many people are stopped. We've gotten those reports. So I think something like that for me is what I would like to see as well.
I think, to me, I guess what I'm trying to convey too is the ultimate goal would be like, maybe you present that information and at the end you say, as a result of this, now you can see this is why we're going to be making these budget recommendations to you when you get to the budget workshop. So then we're in the budget workshop, we already understand it, we already heard, and we know that why you're making this recommendation. Does that make sense?
My only pushback.
I know that's new.
I know, it's not new, actually. That's my pushback. It's not new. We had an entire program evaluation committee that did that. and we as a board got rid of it. And why we did it on a committee level is because that's a lot of work. Collect that data and put it together in a presentation form. Not saying that it's make work, but it kind of is. What we did is we had just the raw data, then we were able to discuss the data on different programs in a committee session. It wasn't as much work for a staff member who's already hopefully very busy. And so I think we need to, if we want staff to put together something like that, we need to be really specific and let them know exactly what we want. So just saying, we just want information on all these programs, not saying you were saying that, Angela. My point is that, you know, we're asking them to put together all this data in a presentation form. I think we need to be, really think about what exactly we want and kind of pare it down to stuff that we think we absolutely will need, because it is a ton of work. And I know this because I was chairman, and I know Robert was chairman of the program evaluation committee when we had it. And that was, I know for about 6 or 7 months when we first got started, that was basically a full-time job for, wanted to pair it out between Tommy and Carol and a few other folks. And then it was a ton of work after that. Would you agree with that, Robert?
I agree. You know, and also it's, you know, governance versus management, and I agree. We need to be real specific on what data we need as from governance, and not get into the weeds on the management side. So I'm more than welcome for us to discuss it, but we need to get information that's relevant to the job that we do, and not get into the day-to-day management of the district.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant by that. Not a program. I don't want to get into the program evaluation level. I just want information that I need to know as a board member, and how, when I have a discussion with other board members from other districts, how our district compares to them and how they're solving these challenges. Because we have those discussions all the time, but I don't understand our demographic to the level that I need to, and I want to. Mr. Cunningham?
Yeah, President, I was just going to say I totally agree with everything, because I was around when we did do the program eval and how that got started. But moving forward, and not only board members, other board members, but to the community, how we as a board and how this district is affecting student outcomes. And so I think if we can, make sure we know what direction we're going in, so that we don't have staff doing a whole lot of unnecessary reports coming together. I mean, maybe we can do a workshop and just see exactly where is that at and what are we affecting. And Dr. Fagan, this kind of ties back to your portrait of a graduate in a sense. To me, it does. And so I think it's a good idea, Madam President.
Well, that's actually a great idea. I mean, if we have a workshop once a year on how we are doing on reaching our goals and vision in the portrait of the graduate, may be a good idea to have a discussion wrapped around that. We do have a presentation every year. Carol gives it. As long as I can remember, I don't know if she's here. But she gives that presentation every year, the data dump is what I call it, where she compares us to neighboring districts, statewide, and so we can look at that. I know that it's delayed because we don't get she does it when we get the data, but that's the data that we have. True, Carol? And what I think may be a good idea is for Carol, if you want to, you can give us the raw data that the board members can just play with it. I don't know if because I remember they used to give you that data in a way that they used to give us discs many years ago, where I can compare Humble with like districts across state. I know they don't give it the state doesn't give the data that way anymore, but. Well, I know that you compile that, but that's a lot of work because you limit to neighboring districts. But we used to be able to do that ourselves.
That was with TEA.
There are different vendors that do have programs that will allow that. We do have some tools that you can access for it, but then there again, the data that you're going to be able to compare from district to district is going to be that lagging data that is published. So right now, the 2017 school year data is what's available, and even within that 2017 school year data, some of that is from a 2016 perspective. But the important thing is the trend that you can see.
Yes, I mean, that's why we, the trends are what we want to identify as a school district, but I don't know. I think Charles's point is really, really good in having a workshop once a year where we look at portrait of a graduate and where are we as a school district in achieving what we've set out to do, what we want our kids to look like at different levels. I think that would be a good idea. Instead of making it presentations across the year, prepare for one big meeting, report card, I guess, of where we are as a district, where we can get that in advance and then ask questions after a presentation or something maybe.
Yeah, I think sometimes y'all do that at the workshops too. I'm thinking of Dr. Johnson, that there was some really good data there around professional development, and its impact. So that makes it easier when we have to approve these people coming in to do training and consultants and stuff like that, because it is having an impact. But I'd like to see it tied back to our survey results and our teachers and how they feel supported and how long are they staying and that kind of stuff. Mr. Sitton?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Mr. Lopez was talking about, you used to go to the TEA website and compare like-minded districts and stuff, demographically, socioeconomics, the whole 9 yards. I'm just curious, I know no one in the room can answer this, but I'm curious with the new A to F rating system, however flawed it is, one of those is going to be comparing like-minded schools, one of the pieces, if you will. And go ahead.
Okay, so they will still do the comparable schools, but that will be for the levels of distinction, not as far as the A through F. Although there will be components from that A through F calculation that will be carried over into how we determine those distinctions. And that's the area where you have the 40 comparable schools matched. But not districts.
But no, I'm talking about schools. So in theory, we should be able, well, again, no one can answer for Commissioner Moran and TEA, but in theory, if that's part of the level of distinction for a school, we could look at the comparative data with like-minded schools across the state, I would think. Now, again, we can't answer that for TEA. I would hope that would be something that we would be able to look at, which is what we used to be able to do 7, 8 years ago.
I think for me personally, would like to see the internal data, not necessarily what's out there on the TEA site. Because when we talk about things like bridging educational gaps, whether it's GT, discipline, special ed, the reading literacy that Ann's group is working on, the curriculum group. If we look at our own district, we can look at how we're shrinking that gap, and we can compare that data it doesn't have to be a regular basis, it can be an annual basis. And for me, it would be okay to even be an information item. It doesn't have to be a full presentation, just to kind of see where we are. Are we closing those gaps in education or across the board in every area? And I know it's a lot of work to collect data, but I would assume in our district we already have special ed data and data on discipline referrals and the number of kids in GT and what that all looks like. So it's just kind of putting it all together and just giving it as information to the board.
Well, I like the data. I agree with that, what Martina just said. What I really liked was able to compare our schools to other similar schools statewide. We used to have that ability, again, 8 years ago. It was really interesting to dig down into some of that data where we had schools that were perceived to be gold standard from a district-wide, but if you compared it by student population, socioeconomic, everything else, they were in the lower quartile. And then we had other schools that were considered to be schools that were not as good. And then you compared those schools, similar schools across the board statewide, and those were in the top quartile. And that was a shocking revelation to the board when we got that data. And it caused us to reevaluate some things. And so if we could get some data that way, that would be great. We've talked about when we had the program evaluation committee, I asked for that a while back, but they couldn't. That was during one of the transition years where they weren't even giving you that data. So if we have an ability to do that again, that data, that was the most helpful data that I received while a board member last 12 years when we were looking at that kind of information, because that really lets you know where those schools stand and how they're performing is when you start comparing them to like schools, not just a school in the neighboring district, but schools across the state.
Just something to kick around. Yeah.
Just another future board item if we're done with that one.
We're done with that one.
Okay. I have, just to let you guys know, I have talked with our council about this, about developing some policies. The whole Facebook revelations about privacy and whatnot. I want to make sure that we protect our employees, our teachers, their information. I know we have policies in place on that, but I asked her to go back and look and tweak and add some of our policies. Also, I want to keep our employees from being preyed upon by people wanting to sell them stuff, and to limit basically who has access to our teachers. I don't want our teachers being sold things or that they don't want to attend or don't have to be around. So long story short is I want to tighten up our policies to protect the privacy and really protect our employees. If they don't want to deal with something, I don't want them to have to deal with it. If they don't want to give their information, I don't want them to have to do that. So we're going to tighten up some of our policies related to those issues. I think we have good policies now where they can keep their, clearly keep their private information withheld, but I want to make sure that those are clear and we make sure our employees know that they can go back and protect all of their information. So we are going to just let the board know we're going to tighten up some of those policies, and Stephanie will bring those back to the board.
No, I like that. 'Cause, I mean, used to, we had everything on our own servers and things like that. And now as we enter in contracts with other entities, we want to make sure that we own that. And yeah, I like that.
Own it and protect it. I mean, I don't want our teachers, I just use teachers, any employees, address, somebody will do an open records act request and get their address and then hit them with, I want to sell you Amway. No offense to Amway, but, or something like that. Or to have Amway come to our schools, because they are public entities and they do have people do have certain rights in public buildings. But I want to try to limit it to certain organizations, PTOs, PTAs, Boy Scouts, things like that involve the school, and all these outside entities that are trying to sell or badger or interfere with our education. I want to limit some of that stuff. I want to just make sure that our employees are protected and they don't have to deal with that stuff. And not saying that it's necessarily happening now. It just, the whole Facebook thing made me think about that, and we've never discussed it as a district. And now that you're right, Angela, everything's changed and everything's on a cloud, and we've got all these vendors. We just need to tighten our policies around those areas. And I'm sure we'll get some policy language, new policy language soon on those issues. But I'd also like to make sure that going forward, because this has been such a crazy year for this district, and STAR testings here is just to make sure that we limit folks trying to get onto our campuses and sell our teachers stuff and bother our staff. Make sure we do that as well.
I think that's a great idea. In a former school board I served on, we had a similar issue. What we did was we set up, and I don't know, it may be difficult in this district, it's very large, but we set up a password like for parents, because right now every teacher email, anyone can click on any school and have access. So there were some things that were password protected for parents who were affiliated with that particular school to get to certain data that's there, and that helps to prevent some of it.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem
For
with that.
safety
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all.
privacy.
There's certain things that we can't limit under the open records rules, like teachers' district emails, my understanding, because I didn't want to even give that out. Apparently, somebody can do an Open Records Act request and get their district emails, but I want to make sure like their home addresses, their personal emails, their personal phone number, all that stuff is massively protected. And also, it's even people coming onto the school trying to sell them things. You know, that happens, and that's so disruptive to a principal or assistant principal that has to deal with that kind of stuff. So I just want to make sure we just tighten that up and make sure we look at it as a district just to be proactive going forward.
Thank you.
And I am in definite agreement, because as a former principal, there is a tremendous amount of time taken away by vendor, and they're great vendors, I won't say that, but the time it takes away from kids and teachers and the general staff on a campus, I mean, and deservingly well, I mean, it's great, but at the same time, you are involving a lot of people. And you're right, because your information goes out there quite quickly. And a lot of them, you know, they're good-hearted and they want to do the best, but teachers have a habit of being too nice sometimes. So I'm in full agreement with it.
Any other items for future board business? All right, with that, we are adjourned.
Well,